Today on Mega Man Fully Charged, Iceman thinks he's a cooler hero than Mega Man. Later, Gutsman makes his series debut and he's hungry for action. In my last video, I briefly summarized the flack Fully Charged received shortly after its proper unveiling in 2016. Fans expressed concern and contempt for the show's redesigns, additions, and embellishments. Unbeknownst to them then, however, those decisions were actually made at the behest of Capcom. In a 2018 interview with comicbook.com, Man of Action's Joe Kelly stated that Capcom specifically asked not to just copy what it had already done. Later, he expressed in an interview with AnimationMagazine.net that Capcom was very supportive of what they were doing with the show. Given these interviews and what the show has done so far, I can safely say that Capcom's support wasn't misplaced. The team behind Fully Charged indeed gets Mega Man. When Kelly was asked if they were avid Mega Man fans, he responded, "Yes. The games informed the world and the characters obviously, but also inspired what we regard to be the greatest asset of the character, the power replication process. It generated a powerful and timely idea. Mega Man doesn't just fight bad guys and throw them in jail. When he replicates a power, he gains insight into a robot's feelings, motives, etc. So Mega Man is about understanding other people and trying to find common ground first and foremost. It's a great motivator for a hero." Granted, Mega Man hasn't copied the abilities of every foe he's met so far, but he's still learned most of their feelings and motives. Fireman distrusts humans, and Chemistry Man feels unappreciated. Drill Man is ashamed of his inability to nurture his musical talents and holds grudges against his father and the company that bought the family business. Hypno Woman seeks fulfillment, and Wave Man wants a friend. Blast Woman seems to just be a petty thief, but she does have a sensible core. Thanks to these insights, Mega Man is equipped to do more than simply stop these villain shenanigans. He can work towards convincing them to not start trouble in the first place. Whether he'll be successful or not in the end is beside the point. What's important is that he's making the effort. As Kelly has said, this is extremely unique, and in a polarized world, a breath of fresh air. But then there's Iceman. Of all the Robot Masters, he's easily the most innocent. His main personality trait is taking things too literally, and on its own, it's not much of a problem. What gets him into trouble is his inability to handle anything that doesn't make sense to him. His method of thinking makes him so inflexible that when sufficiently rattled, he cracks hard. Because of this, properly diffusing a situation with Iceman requires far more patience than with any other Robot Master. Yet, despite this, Mega Man practiced very little patience with him in their first meeting. Immediately upon arrival, Mega Man harshly insulted him, and nearly every word out of his mouth afterward betrayed a shocking level of contempt. Because of this, Nice on Ice has the dubious distinction of being the first episode of the series to truly disappoint me. I know Fully Charged can do better, and Iceman deserves better. So, will Mega Man be more chill the next time he meets him? I.C.E. begins like an inverse of the very first episode. Instead of a novice Mega Man responding to a fire at night, a seasoned Mega Man fights a fire during the day. And instead of revealing that Fireman started it, the scene focuses on Iceman finishing it. He's apparently still set on becoming a hero, much to Mega Man's frustration. Their exchange eventually causes Iceman's schematic to take over, resulting in Mega Man taking everything literally. This notably includes Iceman's remark to leave the hero work to the professionals. Aki reasons that if he were actually a hero, he would have put out the fire, so because he didn't, he isn't. If any of this sounds kind of tortured, that's because it is. I had to watch this episode a few times to fully understand the setup. Aki adopting Iceman's literalism is easy enough to grok, but comprehending exactly how that leads him to becoming despondent and giving up crime fighting is more difficult. After all, Iceman is positive and effervescent despite his literalism. Also, his simple thinking often results in him jumping to conclusions. By contrast, Aki is straight up depressed and consumed with deep thoughts. I guess viewers are supposed to interpret Aki as struggling to find a logical way out of the argument sidelining him, but he spends so much time either being a punchline or being quiet that such a struggle doesn't come through. What does come through, though, is the threat of allowing Iceman to continue his hero work. In Iceman's first appearance, he never struck me as dangerous. Sure, freezing people together is a cold thing to do, but this show leans more on the cartoon side of being frozen. Compare this to, say, Batman the Animated Series, in which being flash frozen is treated like the medical emergency it actually is. Instead, I.C.E. positions Iceman's obliviousness as the real danger. He's more concerned with doing heroic things than actually being a hero, which makes sense because by his logic, doing heroic things is all there is to being a hero. Suna's cognitive therapy session with Aki near the end beautifully brings this point home. She's able to bring Aki out of his funk not by telling him what he needs to hear, but by logically guiding him to a conclusion she knows he knows deep down. That heroism isn't defined by what you do, but by why you do it. While the wisdom of this scene does follow through to the end, the approach doesn't. Mega Man does explain to Iceman that being a hero means helping everybody, but he doesn't attempt to help Iceman grasp why his form of heroism is wrong. To his credit, though, Mega Man was busy freeing everyone from their icy prisons. Choosing to prioritize others' safety not only reinforces the message of this episode, but it demonstrates that Mega Man has grown since his first encounter with Iceman. Back then, he was so focused on stopping Iceman that he largely ignored the victims. This time, Mega Man frees everyone, including the bad guys, before taking Iceman down. This arc also informs viewers that Iceman is indeed following in Mega Man's steps as a hero. His single-mindedness now mirrors Mega Man's from back then. Rough setup aside, I.C.E. is much more satisfying than Nice on Ice. It evidences Mega Man's growth as a hero and increases his value as a role model. Next up, Trust Your Guts Man introduces another fan-favorite Mega Man 1 character to Fully Charged, though not in a very becoming way. Poor Gutsman starts his debut episode sleeping in a pile of garbage for reasons unknown. No, really, there seems like there should be a story here, but this is Gutsman's first episode, and his state here is never explained. This gives me the opportunity to address something I've noticed throughout my time with Fully Charged. As I've mentioned before, I don't have cable, so my ability to watch this series is completely at the mercy of Cartoon Network's whim. In fact, there are still 3 episodes I've never seen. Only a few episodes are available to view without a cable subscription at any given time, and they aren't always available in order. Because of this, my first experience with many episodes was without seeing previous episodes, and I often found myself wondering if those episodes would give additional context to what I was watching. For example, in Nice on Ice, Breaker Knight acts as if he already knows Aki as Mega Man.
Actually, I'm gonna go learn some art stuff, Sergeant Know-It-All.
Oh, I know a lot more than you think.
As it turns out, though, this is indeed the first time he's ever acted like this. He's not shown to have discovered this information prior to that episode. Similarly, Breaker Knight speaks of Gutsman here as if he's an already established character. He mentions that he knows what he can do and that he deserves better. Between this, the fact that he's in a junkyard, and his self-pitying attitude, it looks for all the world like Gutsman fought Mega Man previously and lost, but no. This is Gutsman's first episode, and he receives no backstory. Moments like these make me wonder if scripts were scrapped in production without adjusting the ones that were approved. Even with incomplete context, I still like Gutsman and Breaker Knight's meeting here. The last time viewers saw Knight recruiting a robot master was in a narrated flashback, so getting to see how Knight operates is neat, even if his choice of words is suspect.
What if I told you that I have the power to make you great again?
Well, that's another account to avoid. The scheme here is basic, but it establishes Breaker Knight's goal for the season. Dr. Light has been protective of his lab, and this episode reveals that it indeed contains something very dangerous in the wrong hands. Thus, Breaker Knight has Gutsman attempt to trick his way into the lighthouse in order to break into the lab. Gutsman's attempt at subterfuge is pretty funny. Gutsman, or should I say Gustav Gutsman, tries to keep up the ploy, but his impatient tics make clear that this isn't his forte.
Science! Feed world from garbage! Get father.
I think he and Blaster Woman would get along well. What's not funny is seeing Suna and Dr. Light's intelligence depicted as a liability. The lesson of this episode involves trusting intuition, and for some reason, a sometimes reckless robot is shown to have better instincts than 2 scientists. The angle here is that their intuition is weak due to thinking too much, but that doesn't hold up given the nature of Gutsman's scheme. No split-second thinking is needed to see that something is amiss about a pushy stranger making demands in one's own house. The dialogue does convey that both Suna and Dr. Light are sympathetic to Gutsman's eccentricities because they're treating him as a fellow scientist, but I'd expect that to make them more suspicious of him than anything else. Science requires discipline and rigor, and I have a hard time believing that Gutsman's waste pace tastes so great that both of them would lower their guard and immediately trust him. As much as I don't like Suna and Dr. Light's impotence in this episode, at least Aki isn't shown to be some unthinking wunderkind. His instinct may make him wary of Gutsman, but because he can't place his finger on why, he doesn't immediately act on his suspicions. He acknowledges that his concerns about Gutsman arose despite him knowing not to judge by appearances. This recalls Aki's lesson back in Hard Times in Silicon City, when he found Peter to be helpful despite looking like this. It also further separates him from the reactionary Breaker Knight.
What if I told you that I have the power to make you great again?
Trust Your Guts Man isn't perfect, but it does serve as a preamble to the main plot of Fully Charged, and it provides yet more examples of Aki's thoughtfulness and ingenuity. Speaking of ingenuity, Fully Charged made some neat calls with its version of Gutsman. Based upon the gear on his back and his diminished shoulders, his design appears to be strongly influenced by the Battle Network version of the character. This Gutsman still possesses the super strength of his forebears, but with a clever twist. His strength is tied to eating. The attachments on his back process whatever he eats into the energy needed to power up, expanding his frame and allowing him to launch shockwaves by pounding his stomach. Of all the character's incarnations, this is the first Gutsman whose name actually makes sense. For purists, he does possess a superarm of sorts thanks to his pneumatic forearms, and his personality jives with his classic profile. Gutsman has a quick temper and dislikes reasoning.
Obviously, there's been a very big misunderstanding here. Now, let's talk it out.
No! I make deal with good robot! Robot who believe in me! Open land!
Also, he is said to be very sensitive emotionally.
Feel so empty. Just want to be loved.
This show's Gutsman gets a lot of things right, but I'm not sure what to make of one aspect of his portrayal. Fully Charged goes for a specific form of the strongman stereotype. Voice actor Peter New gives Gutsman a vague East Slavic accent, and composer Stefan Andrews remixes his theme in what sounds like either a Romani or Russian folk music style.
You don't look like a scientist.
Can you see my science brains?
No?
Then you not know. Goodsman is of best. Water so light, a special invention. Change the world through dessert.
Considering that New is Canadian, and Gutsman is not just a villain, but a deceptive villain who starts the episode as a vagrant sleeping in garbage, this portrayal looks a little yikes when examined closely. Now, I'm sure the team didn't mean any harm. I'd be remiss, however, if I didn't point out this unfortunate confluence of details. On a lighter note, the Gutsman toy is pretty cool. It's a big boy, easily overshadowing the other deluxe figures. Despite what fans initially thought, the fully charged team definitely gets Mega Man, and these two episodes prove it. I.C.E. highlights Mega Man's determination to save everyone, including saving people from themselves. Trust Your Guts Man hints at Mega Man's struggle to reconcile his instincts with his sense of justice, an inner conflict that makes him more human than most. May this series never lose that. Next time on Mega Man Fully Charged, DJ Drillman spins up some beats, and yet another old robot master shocks Silicon City.
You need to see the bigger picture! Huh?